I just went hands-on with Samsung's entire new foldable lineup and the two new watches that also have just been launched. And there's a lot to talk about here, especially when it comes to Apple and its foldable plans. So we've got three foldables this time. The Galaxy Z Fold 8 Ultra, hold the thoughts, the regular Galaxy Z Fold 8, and the Galaxy Z Flip 8. Plus, like I mentioned, there's the new Galaxy Watch Ultra 2 and the Galaxy Watch 9. Now, let's start with the Z Fold 8 Ultra, because this is the one that's actually going to feel the most familiar to anyone who's seen a Samsung Galaxy Z Fold in the past. This is basically the traditional fold that we already know, just pushed up a notch. You get that tall 8-inch main display on the inside, and then the 6.5-inch cover screen on the outside. And Samsung didn't really hold back here on the internals. There's a 200 megapixel main camera, a proper 10 megapixel telephoto with 3x optical, and a 30x space zoom, and the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy, which is, a dedicated processor made by Qualcomm, and you can spec it all the way up to 16 gigs of RAM and a terabyte of storage. Batteries at 5,000 milliamp hours, so if you just love the classic fold shape, that tall cover screen, it's very traditional in this sense. It's going to be an excellent phone, but it's the shape that we already know. The thing that's interesting is that it now takes on, we have the rumored iPhone Ultra. It takes that name mostly just because of the specs. It's still the same foldable, but there is another one. The regular Z Fold 8, which would be what we've had in the past, was the Ultra. That's changed the formula, and that is what's kind of following what we are expected to see with the iPhone Ultra. They moved to that passport style or passbook style form factor. So instead of the tall, narrow block that you unfold, this thing is shorter and wider when it's closed. Stop me if you've heard these before, these specs, but a 5.5-inch cover screen, so that's fatter and squarer. And honestly, this is the cover screen that I've wanted for years in a OEM that isn't from China. There's been a lot of other foldables that I just can't get, a lot of overseas in China foldables that we just can't use here. And Google has been doing something very similar, but I wanted Samsung to switch over because I think I prefer Samsung's take. And so we finally have that wider 5.5-inch panel. It feels like something that you'd be happy using closed all day if you need to. But then when you open it up, the payoff, in my opinion, continues. The inner screen is now 7.6 inches, but the important part here is the proportions. It's not that weird near square panel that the traditional Fold, which is now the Ultra, gives you. It reads much more like a proper little tablet, closer to an iPad mini feeling, which, again, if you're kind of figuring this out, this is basically the clone of what the iPhone Ultra is supposed to be coming later this September. And so if you are reading more, watching more videos, split screen work, this is where I think it's going to be that sweet spot of a normal phone when you use it closed, and then a much more tablet-like experience when you unfold it, albeit a smaller tablet. And so as I mentioned, this is the form factor that everyone has been expecting for the upcoming foldable, the iPhone Ultra. Everything that we've been hearing points to Apple going to a passport style, a wider outer screen, and an inner display that behaves much more like a smaller iPad, rather than an odd square slab of glass like what we have with some other foldables. I've talked plenty about how much I've liked that direction and how I wish other manufacturers, aside from Google, would do this, and Samsung has done it. So this is oddly reminiscent of when we were talking about the iPhone Air coming, and then months prior we got a random S25 Edge. Samsung just seems to be beating Apple to the punch here with this new foldable. So if the iPhone Ultra ends up looking like what I think it will, it'll basically just be this. This is the preview of what you can expect. And it's a big deal, and I really do like this form factor a lot. I think Samsung has absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one, but it's not getting the Ultra specs, which I find it to be very interesting. The standard Z Fold that we've mentioned earlier and that we showed off earlier, that is the highest end one. This is the kind of base model for that. Now, again, that trade-off will give you no dedicated telephoto lens, so you're just gonna have the wide and ultra wide. You're also looking at a 50 megapixel main and a 50 megapixel ultra wide with digital zoom instead of optical. So there are the camera compromises. I kind of wish Samsung would have just thrown in all three cameras to show you that you can do that in this form factor, but they didn't. So Apple is going to have two cameras, Samsung has two cameras, so it's not going to be something where you're like, oh, well, I might as well go for, there's like a missed opportunity. Samsung could have done a triple camera system and Apple would have kind of been shown up a little bit. The Z Flip 8 also rounds things out, and it's the most straightforward of the three. It's the familiar flip. You have a 6.9-inch main screen and a 4.1-inch cover, and a 50 megapixel main camera with a 43,000 milliamp hour battery. This is the one, the clamshell that is much more pocketable. It's much more trendy and stylish. Comes in hip, fun colors. You get pink, graphite, cream, and a mint option that you can grab online. Samsung does some exclusives here. And yeah, the regular Fold 8, if you want some different colors, you have lavender and pistachio. And the Ultra leans a little bit more moodier with a violet shadow and a green shadow. But Samsung's colors are pretty strong this year, in my opinion. And yeah, those are the foldables. I will have a much more in-depth video, and then when Apple's comes out, I'll be comparing the two, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Let's go over to the watches briefly, because this is where I have some feelings about how far back I just think sometimes the Apple Watch can be. Now, we do have the Ultra 2 and the Galaxy Watch 9, and the first thing I just want to say is I still love smartwatches that are round. I know I've said it 100 times on this channel, and Apple I just don't think is ever going to do that. I'm going to keep waiting for Apple to make one, but Samsung gives you the best round circular watch, that classic style that you can get. Unfortunately, it doesn't play super well with iPhone, so you need to have a Samsung phone to really get the full experience. But the Ultra Watch 2 in titanium at 47 millimeters, the Watch 9 is the 44 and 40 millimeter sizes. And they just look like regular watches, but they can do so much more. From a health perspective, Samsung, I think, is clearly ahead. The active biosensor includes bioelectrical impedance analysis, which means these watches can read your body composition right from your wrist. So your body fat, your muscle, your water levels. The Apple Watch still can't do that. That's a real groundbreaking health feature that's sitting on a watch that I just feel like you should be able to get in Apple's watch, at least the Ultra, and maybe it'll come later, but they've been able to do things like sleep apnea detection beforehand, blood glucose before the Apple Watch. It's just kind of a bummer that we're not getting all of that in the Apple Watch. The Ultra 2 also pushes its display up to 5,000 nits, which is brighter than anything on Apple's side. It's rated to a serious level of durability with 10 ATM and an ML spec rating, plus around 60 hours of battery. So that's the lineup of everything. I wanted to give you a quick preview of what Samsung just launched. The Ultra is the classic fold that Samsung has made in the past with just some beefier internals and specs. The Flip is the fun, easy one that people know. And then the Z Fold 8 this year excites me the most because it's the one that's competing directly with the iPhone Ultra, at least in terms of the form factor. It's that passport, passbook style, 5.5 inch to a 7.6 inch when you open it up. I really enjoy this one. This is the one I'm going to try to use the most. And of course, when Apple releases the iPhone Ultra later this year, I will have head-to-head. But subscribe to the channel so you don't miss. Let me know your thoughts on this. Are you, surprised that Samsung has beaten Apple to the punch with this form factor? And are you thinking about getting the iPhone Ultra or switching over to Samsung entirely? But do you like this new form factor and these specs and dimensions? Let me know down in those comments. This has been with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.